It's a hit. Let's go. Look, I ain't perfect, I ain't afraid to show it. Too many hands was in my life when I was trying to mold it. See, I was living life for others, but I never folded. I really was deep in stress and just afraid to show it. See, I never assessed for myself what I really wanted, until I had a chance at it and started to grab at it. Someone came into my life and I fell into bad habits, paying the hefty prices. I'm losing years of my life. Such a pivotal time where I should have been on my grind for every goal in my mind, but I didn't at the time. Now I'm feeling behind like my hands on ass, but there's no satisfaction sitting within my grasp. Nip said it was a marathon, I still felt last, while I'm running through this pain sitting in my past. Pressed about the time because somebody spilled my shit, and ain't this a bitch? I'm the one that gotta mop it.
I'm here with the amazing hip-hop artist and singer, songwriter, Mr. Cal Alston. Mr. Alston, and I didn't even say the best part. You're barber and stylist. Like, you got a lot going on, my man.
Yeah.
So, first of all, tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a singer, songwriter, R&B artist, and barber. I've been doing this now, over a decade. And it's been a fun journey. My goal, I'd say, if anybody's just curious about how I bring those things together, is I try to fuse doo-wop R&B with hip hop. That's what I grew up on. So I try to blend those things together, and that's how we got this project. So
Okay. So was it music your first love, or styling, or being a barber? Which was it?
It was music was first, but it wasn't at the beginning, it wasn't a option to be like a profession. It wasn't on my list, like on my radar. It was just recreational at the time. But that changed. Barbering didn't come in until I was in undergrad, until I was in college. And that was because, in college, you don't always got money, so you got to figure out hustle. And that was the best one. I mean, most of the out of town students, the barbershop across the street, they knew we were out of town, so they knew they could like up the price a little bit. So it turned into like, all right, well, we got to figure it out because we're not about to go there and try to pay those prices. So it worked out. That's where that started, and yeah.
Well, you got a plan. You got a plan A and a plan B.
Absolutely.
They're both gonna work out because you're nice either way it go. But you're welcome. So, who are your favorite artists that you enjoyed listening to while in college?
Ooh.
And did you imitate any of them, like sing in the shower with the brush? Like, what did you do?
So in college, I really that was like the first time I got to deep dive in hip hop. And there wasn't anybody I imitated, but there were a lot of people I just grew to like a lot more. I started to, at one point in time in high school, I was very big on Lil Wayne for his lyricism, and I didn't really appreciate Jay-Z as much. As I got older and I started to kind of listen with a more like attentive ear, that changed because the subject matter, how his thoughts were coming, I was like, oh wow, okay, things stood out. And then there were other artists. There was I started hearing more of like Common's earlier music before he like moved and pivoted into acting, and I was like, wow, he's dope. I was like, I didn't even know he was that gifted. And then it just kept snowballing. So those were some of the artists. I would even say like Jay Electronica. He came along in the hip hop scene later, but he was someone else that I like dove into. It's a lot of people. It's really a lot. Like KRS-One, I again, somebody that was so before, I want to say before my time, and then I started listening to his stuff, and I remember he takes the word officer and turns it to overseer, and the way he does it in his one of his verses, I was just like, wow, you know what I mean? Excuse me. So it was like stuff like that I just started picking up on. And then I also even saw the influences from the artists that were out while I was in school, where they were getting their influences from. As I started to look further back, like I think Dead Prez, I think was the first one to say, something along the lines like when my music hits you, you feel no pain. And then a lot of people in my generation didn't necessarily hear that until Drake said it. And when I did like the, digging in the crates, it was like, oh, so it was cool connecting the dots in hip hop of just who influenced who and where people were drawing from. So it was a lot of people. It was just a lot of people that inspired me as I just did my homework and learned more and more.
You just disappointed me with Drake. Now he's one of my favorites. You mean to tell me he copied Dead Presidents? What?
He is, it was a paying homage thing. A lot of people do it, and you hear it from them, and you think they were the first person to do it. And then you dig in the crates a little bit, and you're like, oh, he was giving a shout out when he said that. He was kind of attributing, some of his inspirations to that person. It was just like, wow. So, and definitely people like Nas. That was another person that I guess I could say was someone like I really dove into more, because my favorite record from him is like Rewind. He tells a whole story backwards, the whole verse. It's like a movie in your mind, and you're watching it play. And one of the dopest things ever, and I had never heard that before. So it's just, again, like different artists, you're seeing their talent, their skill, and I was just like, wow. So. There's more, but yeah, those are a couple that come off the top of my head.
You appreciate music like it's art, I think.
Yes.
So, and then speaking of that art, when did you discover your sound?
Wow, it was definitely towards the end of I would say towards the end of like college, but so maybe like 2014, 2015, and then it was about trying to get it from in here to like in the mic, in the speakers. But that was around the time, and it was because I was lucky enough, just the way the world works, I was lucky enough to be surrounded by artists. So I like other people that were pursuing music careers at the time, and they are people that have been blessed and fortunate enough to write for some pretty well-known artists and just make their way as writers and screenwriters and other things as well. So I was around them a lot, and I would just kind of even study the people that I was close to. And that's when I kind of figured out, okay, what works for me? How does this, where do I stand out in this? What do I do aside from them? What makes me stand out from them? And that's where I said, okay, well, I really do the lyricism thing. I like to do that. And then it was, okay, when it comes to singing, how do I sing? Well, I'd like to do it. I like to, emulate maybe 4-part harmonies and put like a doo-wop feel. And that's when it started to mold for me, like, oh, okay, this is where I want to take my sound. And it's just about perfecting that. But yeah, so I would say towards the end is where I started to get that sense of direction. A lot of that was just learning, growing, trial and error. And,
and here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
It's interesting that you say that because your dad came into the game stepping on necks. So
yeah.
Now, what is some of the advice he gave you that you use that's actually paying off now?
I would say artist etiquette is some of the stuff that I think really, really works. And also artist etiquette, I would say first, is because a lot of times when you have younger artists that don't know that,
right,
you don't know how to build relationships with other artists.
Facts.
So that was one of the things. I remember I was young, and I remember he was telling me one of the things you don't do is when you're at a gig, you're at a showcase, you're on the card with more than one artist. If you have to leave or if you have to exit, you wait until the other artist performs. So that way you give somebody the moment to set up. Whoever's setting up, they're setting up, they're not on stage yet. You don't disrupt their performance.
Right.
Small things like that matter because that's going to stick out in somebody's mind. And, you be personable, you speak to people, all that kind of, the regular stuff. But that was one of the things that stood out to me because I've seen showcases where that's happened. And I've watched how that's affect other artists. And when you're at the beginning stage, or when you're in the, when you're on your come up, those things stick out in people's mind. They're going to remember that later on. And you never know who you might, I really like how they've developed their sound. I want to work with them. And then they may not, that you may have rubbed them the wrong way because in the middle of their set, you got up and did whatever, or you just didn't show that level of respect to the other performer. So that was one of the things really that, like, first thing he told me, and I was just like, I never thought of that. That didn't even cross my mind, but
right.
So
I'm sure nobody thinks about that, but that is just that's valuable information. I mean, because I'd never even thought of that. You know, maybe that's why I don't get invited out anymore. I'm infamous for doing the church little finger pointing, exiting out. Okay, I don't care who done finished. I'm out.
Right,
but,
right.
So now parents are generally hard on their children who become stars, especially when you're second generation star. How did it make you feel that your dad holds you to such high esteem, like he sees a part of himself in you?
So the blessing, I think, in him and even in my mother's doing, in just not naming me after him and not trying to put me in his shadow from the beginning, and then even reaffirming later that it's like, you don't have to be him, you be you. It's made that whole process a lot easier. Because like I've heard, his influence is there because he was the first singer I heard up close and in person. That's just how it shakes out. And I hear it, but it's never a situation of me doing it in an attempt to sound like him or to emulate. It's just, that's the first voice I've heard. So there's going to be an influence. And then as I've grown and listened to other singers, I've accumulated other things from other artists. And I've never felt the pressure from him to be him. So it's always been, he even points it out from time to time, how we sing differently. We have similar sounds because I heard his voice first, but how my phrasing, how I may do a run or how I do runs in general, as opposed to he's a more powerful singer. So it's already a difference in just our style alone. And he always is encouraging me to investigate that. See what else you can do with that. Really take advantage of that. And it's not always, well, I would do it like this. The only time, and it's good advice that I get from him as it pertains to singing, is just you make sure that it comes from your feeling. Learn the song, learn the words, and be able to emotionally connect to the song. After that, it's on you and how that comes out. So I've been fortunate that there hasn't been that pressure from him. It's more just do you, dig into what's comfortable for you, and connect with the music. So that's how that's been.
Well, you connect pretty well, and I'm gonna get into that in a minute. But first of all, tell us about Rebirth and Revelations and the inspiration behind the 8-track album.
So Rebirth and Revelations was a project where I really wanted to talk about, it was a moment for me where I realized I had to change things about myself, and there were things that needed to happen in order for that to take place. And I also was running away from, or not necessarily running away, I was letting the fact that there is still a pressure of being somebody's, a star's son, so to speak. Some of that stuff still was steering some of my own choices. And it's because even when it's not pressure from the family, it's still the thought of outside, what other people are going to say that aren't in the family, but you are you Gerald's son, and da 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 da. And that can skew things because he's a gospel singer too. You know what I'm saying? So, and if I want to do hip hop and I want to do it the way I want to do it, I can't worry about that. You know what I mean? Because again, he's him, I'm me.
That's
but when you're going on that path and you're trying to figure that out, you come to that realization, nobody that loves you is gonna love you any less. And that's the most important thing. So that was it was things like that inspired the album. And then things also in my own personal life with friends, romantic relationships, how I was allowing myself to be treated, and just what kind of person I was being at the time. All of those things, there needed to be a rebirth, and along the way there were a bunch of revelations in that rebirth. So as I started to change who I was in my interpersonal relationships, in my romantic relationships, there was revelations about like, wow, these are things that apply across, different parts of life. These are life lessons now that you have to like hone in on, start to apply, and start to really take seriously. So that all of those different things kind of just fueled the project, and that's how we got to this nice little 8-track project.
It's a nice project. Now, speaking of giving shout outs, what was the muse behind Honesty Hour? You gave an ode to Tevin Campbell and Usher for 1000% sure.
Yeah. Honesty Hour was that was to set the tone for the album because of what I was saying earlier. But that specifically was me trying to take accountability for me.
Right.
So that Honesty Hour, what inspired that was the conversation I knew I needed to have with myself before I get into anybody else who did X, Y, and Z, or what I didn't like, or what I was tolerating, or what some third party was doing that I didn't like. The first thing I had to address was, okay, that's all fine and dandy, we can get to that, but what have you been doing, and what role have you played in this that has allowed this moment of discomfort where you had to push yourself to grow, to even unfold? And it was, oh yeah, you have some things that you didn't do right. You were allowing certain things to happen. You weren't speaking up for yourself, or you weren't allowing X, Y, and Z to play out properly, or you weren't behaving the way you truly wanted to behave. You weren't being the person you truly want to be. And that doesn't serve you. So that was definitely the inspiration for that particular song. And that's where I wanted to start the project anyway. It was just got to start at you, and then we could branch out and talk about other things.
Okay.
Look, I ain't perfect, I ain't afraid to show it. Too many hands was in my life when I was trying to mold it. See, I was living life for others, but I never folded. I really was deep in stress and just afraid to show it. See, I never assessed for myself what I really wanted.
So you wanted the accountability portion of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
I could deal with that. So you're not a Legion. I don't know if you saw that on TikTok, but
oh God. Oh, y'all talking about yeah. Well, who did I marry, right?
But yeah.
Who did I marry? That's a lot. Yes, I am not him. Absolutely not.
You're not him. Okay. No. So I was like, I'm gonna come on. This is the first track you're gonna hear. I did X, Y, and Z. Let me get it out
right.
the way.
Let me get that out of the way and be honest. Yeah. Let me do that now. I don't need you. You got 2 phones? What you got this? You got that? You lying about? What's your real name? What's your fake name? Yeah, no.
Bro, it was too much.
Very much.
Now, would you say this, because you did bring a lot of elements to make it a masterpiece, would you say that it stretched you the most out of this project?
What stretched me the most?
This Honesty Hour, was that the one song that stretched you because you did put very thoughtful elements into the track? For sure, I'm sure you did that with all the tracks, but
no. That was because it's funny, as artists, we're like, there's an uncomfortable thing with opening up. So yes, that was definitely, I think that was what made everything else more comfortable to do. Like the fact that I was able to say, well, this is me, as I'm holding me accountable. Then it's like, now when I want to talk about anything else, I'm in a more comfortable space because I started there. So I think in terms of comfort and songwriting and being vulnerable, absolutely. It did a great job of just furthering my bandwidth and like my elasticity as an artist, for sure.
I think the way you carried the notes as well in that particular track. It's not to say you didn't, because you did a little hip hop in some of the tracks, but with this one, you were definitely hitting different ranges that you're not doing as much throughout the album. You just hit different layers, and I guess you were coming with different feelings but this is the one that was kind of more explosive. And I guess you were not on your Legion tips, so that honesty made you like, okay, you in the midnight hour bringing it, okay?
Yes.
So
Yes.
now, what do you think is the next buzz single from this time?
Ooh, that's a good question. So when we did a semi-focus group at a listening party, and a lot of people liked Time I'm On. They liked that record, and I think that might be it. I think that might be it. It's between that and the Tevin Campbell Usher medley.
I'm gonna have to go back in and revisit that.
Yeah, it's either that's what I would say. Either one of those are the next one off the project that I think are gonna create some buzz. Because obviously the medley and the thing is, I think, you know what? I think I'll put the medley ahead of Time I'm On, even though that was the feedback we got from the listening party. I'll say the medley is in the lead by a little bit because there's layers to that. So there was, like, I don't know if anybody's aware, or not anybody's aware, but I don't know if you know, like, there was at one point this online kind of feud about who Can We Talk was originally written for. So there was there was a whole thing where Usher, I think at one point either said maybe once that he was supposed to have Can We Talk. It was written for him.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right. And then of course Babyface has cleared all that up since then. But what I thought was so dope is at the time they were both close in age, they were both on the come up, and they were both pretty nice voices at that time period.
Right.
And you know, it's like that comparison at the time. I like that one, during his residency, he invited Tevin Campbell out and they did that song together at his residency in Vegas. And what I thought was just so dope is with that kind of little backstory, fusing Usher's record with Tevin Campbell's record, it was just to pay homage to the fact that I don't think we don't need to even have this little whose song was it or whatever the case may be, because honestly, both of you are phenomenal R&B artists in your own right. So why not fuse some of your greatest records together and just show how great it is, period. So right. I think that little tidbit kind of adds a little something to it, but I won't know until I see the reaction as people continue to listen. So I might be right, I might be wrong. I don't know yet.
It's about
drink in my hand. I feel like the man. I don't give a damn. Last night I saw you.
It's about I do think what I can appreciate you as far as being an artist is concerned, everything is a learning opportunity. Like you never miss a beat to learn, and that shows your serious, like you taking the craft serious from day one. The fact that you went back and listened to Dead Prez, that I mean, like Common was not my favorite, but you took time to go back and educate yourself on all of these things before you created your own music, and I think that speaks to the caliber of excellence that you're shooting for with this project. Now, do you think this is your magnum opus?
No. This is I would say this is just to get a little attention. This is not we're working towards that kind of project.
Okay.
This is honestly, this is a project to kind of show off, you know, different skills, different qualities, what I can do live, to garner some attention, and really just to also bring a different type of artistry that hasn't been there in a while. Because you know, you go to showcases and you go to different places now, and like I said before, artist etiquette is not something that you see often anymore. I'm lucky enough to have been taught that. And then you also just see people's approach to their records, how they perform their records. All of these things are not being done the way I've seen them done. And with these records, I feel like I can do that. So when I go out and when I go out and I perform these records, I am following in the footsteps of who I watched perform. So
Right.
it's a big difference with how I carry these songs, how I want to sing them, because a lot of times I think various reasons, it could be stage fright, it could be anything, but when people perform, they're sometimes people don't show up as comfortable and as confident in their work, and
Right.
sometimes they don't always want to have they don't carry it as if they're happy with what they're doing.
Mm.
There's no pride in it. So for me, these tracks, there's pride in them because I know they were sculpted with the idea of me being able to show off what I can do, what skills I have, and kind of market and advertise myself and say, look, I'm not playing with what I do.
Right.
I'm not playing with it at all. We are far from done. We've just started, and yeah, and I could say that confidently because the reception I get when I perform these tracks is exactly that.
Okay.
So, and that's I'm only going off of what I've seen. This is in no way ego thing. This is just when I go out, I do honesty hour. I remember the first time I did it, another artist came up to me and was like, "You just said everything that I've been feeling. You know, I'm going through this place in my life, and that really encompasses that. And I've got it on repeat now." And I was like, "Yes, yeah, like that is the goal. That's what lets me know I'm going in the right direction." And then when we do the Tevin Campbell medley, that always blows people away because medleys aren't a thing that you see often anymore. And everybody's not getting, everybody's not used to seeing singers sing like that anymore. So whenever I do that medley, I'm trying to show off my voice and trying to do things. And the same thing, I met with like a good reception. People are like, "Wow, I love both of those records. I never even thought of someone doing that. That's dope. And you sound great." So that I think the goal has been achieved with this project.
I think so too. And speaking of which, you recently performed, or later last year, Casanova with your dad.
Go ahead, Cal. All right. Listen. Every time I wanna see you, I can't find the words to tell me so. Man, you're a woman, and I want you to be my wife. There's so much better, baby.
Dad, that had to be exciting. What other tours are you working on, and what did you learn while performing with him? I mean, was it the first time or?
No, it hasn't. So that was, I want to say maybe the second or third time we've performed together. Maybe I would say third or fourth, including some of the gospel stuff. So that wasn't new, but what was new was me being presented as an artist outside of him prior. So it changed how I had to perform still. Like in the past, I've come out and I've sang with him, but I was a feature on the gospel album, or I'm his son and I'm doing this. And now when I come out as an established artist, I have to show up in that same way. I can't show up like, "Oh, I'm just here with my dad. It's his thing." It's like I have to be comfortable enough to stand beside him and say, "No, we're doing something for the audience." So it changes, and it was fun. So I think what I learned there was to try and be as comfortable as possible with him, and not to shy away or worry about stepping on toes, because I know this is what he wants. I know this is, he wants me to be confident, be comfortable, be in my comfort zone on stage. So that's the new thing now. Standing next to him, being comfortable. That's the thing I learned, and now I have to carry that over because we're definitely going to do it again. That's for sure a thing.
Okay, so you're owning your spaces.
Absolutely owning the spaces.
I can dig it. I love it. So, what is your biggest accomplishment, and what else? Like, what next for you within the next 5 years?
Ooh. Do I want to shoot for the moon and the stars with this one? The next 5 years, oh man, I definitely want to just continue to grow my fan base, grow my reach. That's first and foremost. And I think, obviously more projects. There's another one already where we're going to be starting to record soon. And who knows what I could do. I mean, I definitely want to do festivals. I think that's the next goal. The next more grounded thing outside of like, oh, I want to win a Grammy, I want to do X, Y, and Z. The next tangible step for me is growing the fan base and moving on to festivals and really, really taking what I'm doing here. If my instincts have been right this far, taking what I've learned and applying it to festivals. Because if I can go to a festival and I can tear down a stage there, that means, okay, next we could do a tour. Next, you know what I mean? Next we can do our own festival. Next thing. So I definitely want to get in the mode of festivals and touring on my own. That's the next step. So just a project, touring, and getting on some festivals.
Well, it's coming. I mean, you're already touring, so it's not so far removed.
Yeah. I will say this. It's so I am, but it's a bit different. Because again, it's still with. So the independent portion of that is what is up next, because it's great. You learn a lot, but you also, and this is, I've said this before, this is something I do as well, is when I go to showcases, I always go by myself because I want an honest reaction. Mm-hmm. So the same thing is what I'm going to have to start doing when it's time to try and gravitate and sell out a room. Right. I can't depend on, oh, well, I'm with the Manhattans and Cal Alston, and we got the whole East Coast connection. They are gonna always bring somebody into the room, but I've got to be able to say, all right, now let's see if Cal could bring people into the room.
Thanks.
And can he do it by himself? And can he keep the attention? And that's like the next step is definitely to be doing it alone, and then moving accordingly and going on to the next step. But I'm just in the process of doing that. In the meantime, while we tour now, I'm just learning.
Well, I think you're smart enough to read the room. Like you're highly intuitive. So like whatever the case may be, when the time is right for you.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, definitely.
Where can our viewers follow you and download your music?
So social media is Cal Alston Music, CALALSTON Music. That's all one word. I will say it again because it's a lot. But CALALSTON Music. And you could find me on all streaming platforms. It is just Cal, spelled like an acronym because it is one. It stands for Calvin Alston's Legacy. And it's just Cal. You can find Rebirth Revelations, like I said, on all streaming platforms. Go listen. Go give it a listen. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you like. But yeah, that's where you can find me, and that's where you can find the music.
You won't be disappointed. I can't say that. And I don't lie about music. Like, just like you taught me something tonight. So I'm gonna start declining these, getting invited to these events, since there is an etiquette you're supposed to have, because guys, out. I done learned something. Thank you, Cal.
Hey, I'm just passing on what I learned.
Right, I should have known better. I'm like, oh, I know these invites getting scarce. Oh, I leave early. Okay. All right, I got it. Thank you, Cal. So I appreciate you, and you know what? You're stand out on your own. So I'm just waiting to see how far you go from here. So I appreciate you so much for being just a talented artist and just being confident and letting others know that no matter what your upbringing is, you can still break out on your own and do your thing. So I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me again.
You're welcome.
Say hey. Let's go. Look, I ain't perfect, I ain't afraid to show it. Too many hands was in my life when I was trying to mold it. See, I was living life for others, but I never folded. I really was deep in stress and just afraid to show it. See, I never assessed for myself what I really wanted, until I had a chance at it and started to grab at it. Someone came into my life and I fell into bad habits, paying the hefty prices. I'm losing years of my life. Such a pivotal time where I should have been on my grind for every goal in my mind, but I didn't at the time. Now I'm feeling behind like my hands on ass, but there's no satisfaction sitting within my grasp. Nip said it was a marathon, I still felt last, while I'm running through this pain sitting in my past. Pressed about the time because somebody spilled my shit. And ain't this a bitch? I'm the one that gotta mop it. My life been on spin.